everyone. Hi, I'm hoping that I'm live now, and I'm just going to check that I am. Have a quick look on my iPad, see what you can see. I think I've remembered to mute it this time, so you won't be getting me in stereo. Let's just have a look. And there I am. Hooray, hooray. I think I'm a few minutes late, so I'm sorry if you were here promptly at 2. I have no excuse. I'm sorry. I was just getting set up. So Mary's here. Hello, Mary. Nice to see you. Oh dear. One of these days I will have that lot behind me, really, really tidy and neat. My Stampin' Up shelves are a lot neater, and that's all my kind of non-Stampin' Up stuff, which I've gathered over decades and decades of crafting. And it's organised and I can find everything, but it's not very tidy and it's not very pretty to look at. But the way my room is set up, that's what you get to see when I'm talking to you. So hopefully you will forgive me. Okay, Faye is here. Hello, Faye. Lovely to have you. Mary says hi to everyone, as does Belinda. So lovely to have you, ladies. I've had quite a few people tell me that they would see me this afternoon, so that's always really nice. I know loads of people watch this on the replay, and actually quite a lot watch it on YouTube afterwards as well. So if that's what you're doing, then you're very welcome too, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. Sandy's here and Pam is here, and they say hello to everybody too, which is really nice. I've got a little list here somewhere of all the things I need to remember to say. There we go. I'm glad I didn't lose that. Having spent 15 minutes thinking about what I wanted to tell you. Okay, so how are you all? It's the end of another week. The weeks are flying by, despite the fact that I'm starting to champ at the bit a little bit with all the restrictions. The weeks still seem to fly by, and I think it's because I'm busy. I'm sure you're all finding the same. If you're keeping busy, the time just passes, and it's certainly true that the older you get, the faster the time goes. When I think of those times when I was a teenager, I used to complain that I was bored. Oh my goodness, I wish I could have those days back. I can't remember the last time I was bored. So Gillian's here. Hi Gillian. Candy's here too. So welcome, welcome. So what have I been doing this week? What I do most weeks really, which is cutting card, making pretty things, chatting to people either on the phone or on email or various other ways. There's so many ways we can communicate these days, aren't there? Even face to face is possible at a distance. Occasionally I bump into somebody, or I've had people do click and collect. So I've seen a few of you this week, which has really been so nice. It's so nice to chat to people. What else have I been doing this week? I feel like, you know, I've been busy, but I can't think what I've done. What did I do? I've made some bread, only in a bread maker, don't be impressed. I've had a bread maker for years, and I don't know why I stopped using it really, but I did. But I've dusted it off and I've been making bread, and it's so much nicer, and bread is so expensive to buy these days. I haven't actually costed it out. I've no idea what the electricity costs. Maybe 5 hours in a bread maker isn't actually any cheaper than buying bread, but certainly the raw ingredients are much, much cheaper. So I've been enjoying that, and so has the family. What else? Tonight I'm attending, as we say these days, with air quotation marks, a live screening from the Banff Mountain Film Festival again. They're showing some unshown films from one of the festivals, so I'm really looking forward to that. And tomorrow I'm super excited. Tomorrow I'm running my all-day spring extravaganza class. So that's going to be 3 sessions, each are about 2 hours, running it in a special Facebook group. Got lots of lovely people attending for that. They've all had their kits. I did set a little bit of homework this time, which is not normal, but I just decided that it was going to save quite a lot of time in the class. So people have been telling me they've done their homework, so I've been issuing gold stars all round. So I'm really looking forward to that. And for those people that wanted to do the class but don't do Facebook, everything will be uploaded to YouTube immediately after each session, and I'll send out the video links, so they will be able to watch it a little bit later, but still on the same day if they wish. And if the day doesn't suit, of course, with the wonder of video, you can watch it anytime and make the projects anytime. So I'm super excited about that. Okay, so Maureen Russell's here. Hello, Maureen. Lovely to have you as well. Sandy's saying the thing with making bread, even in a machine, is that you know exactly what has gone into it and it tastes so much nicer. That is really true, Sandy. And I also think it seems to kind of sustain you for longer. you know, if you have, I don't know, toast from a plastic loaf for breakfast, by about 10 o'clock I'm hungry again. But you know, if it's homemade bread, it just seems to keep you going for a lot longer, and it's much nicer, and as you say, you know exactly what's gone into it. So yes. Sandy's saying homework. Oh my god, I better look. I'm sure you've done your homework, Sandy. I'm sure you have. It was the colouring in of the die cuts, and so I'm sure you've done that. But if you haven't, you've got time, so don't panic. Jackie's here. Hi, Jackie. Jackie's saying she's going to watch the replay. She's just watched Emma Goddard, a brilliant colouring demonstration with butterflies, and she's having a late lunch. That's absolutely fine, Jackie. I'm going to watch Emma later as well. So yes, so Emma was doing something for us online, for us demonstrators, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that. So tell me anything else interesting that you've been up to this week, or you're planning for the weekend. I love to know what you're doing. Okay, so what's happening in the world of Stampin' Up? So where are we? The butterflies paper. If any of you have been wanting the, is it called Butterfly Bijou Butterfly, I think it is. I can remember which way around those words go. It has sold out. Now, we hoped that it was going to last right through until the beginning of May, but we did know it was only while stocks last, and I think we've all been doing such a good job of telling you how lovely it is that it has completely sold out. However, I'm running a Brilliant Butterflies class in April. It needs to be booked by a week today, next Friday, and I do have stocks available for that class for people to sign up, and in that class you get half a pack of the butterfly patterned paper, and you'll remember from a few weeks ago I was showing you how beautifully it cuts with the dies or works as backgrounds for the stamped images. So I need to tell you that you can't order the paper anymore, I'm afraid, but if you've been thinking about doing my class, that might be a little push to you to book, because you will get half a pack of that beautiful paper. And I offered as an option to order an extra pack of paper along with the class, and I may well be able to lay my hands on some extra paper for that too. So let me know. You can send me an email. My email is handmadeathome, that's all one word, handmadeathome@hotmail.co.uk. Most of you know that already, I know, and I believe it's in my Facebook contact details too. So that's the Brilliant Butterflies class. It's 3 detailed cards and a box, and last day to book is next Friday. So any comments? So Jackie's saying yes please for the class. I'll send you the details for the class, Jackie. Thank you very much. I'm just writing that down now. Okay, look out for those in your email inbox. Have I got your email, Jackie? I'm not sure. Let me have your email. Perhaps send it via Messenger. And that would be great. Okay, I'm writing that on my scratch paper so I don't forget. Jackie thinks she may get into the garden. She's had a rose bush that's come off the wall in the wind. And yes, butterfly paper, I know, she's sad about that too. Sandy's checked and she did do her whole homework. Yes, you do get a gold star, Sandy, well done. Yeah, thanks, Jackie. That's great. Yes, just send me your email address just in Messenger. That's fine, and then I will send you an email with all the details of that class. And Ruth would like it too. I'll send it out to you, Ruth. Thank you so much. And hello, Ruth. I don't think I've said hello to you yet. Mary says, can you tell me where to find the double label punch? I can, Mary. I'm going to stand up and reach my catalogue, so just bear with me. Make sure I don't pull the microphone with me. Okay, so you need this catalogue, which is the January to June mini catalogue, and you will find the butterfly punch in 2 places. It's listed on page 86 at the top right in a very small picture. That's like a pictorial index, and then you've got a bigger picture on page 65. Which I can't find. Page 65. Yeah, so page 65, Mary, or the top right of page 86. So I hope that helps you. Okay, ask me another. All right, what else do I need to tell you about? Some of you will know already, if you've had my list of classes, you'll know that I'm going to be doing 4 lives on the week that the new annual catalogue is launched, which is the week of the, I think it's the 3rd of May, 6, 5, 4, yeah. The Monday is the 3rd, the catalogue launches on the Tuesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'll be doing a live session here at 2 o'clock, and I will put that on my events page as I normally do. However, on the Thursday of that week, when I sent out the class lists, I thought I was going to be doing the Thursday session at 2 o'clock as well, but I'm not. I'm doing it at 12. And there's a really important reason for that, and that is that my hairdresser rang me and said she can fit me in for a haircut at 3 o'clock on Thursday, May the 6th. But she can't do it any other time for several weeks afterwards. So I had to say yes, because I last got my hair done the 2nd week in December. So by the time May comes around, it's going to have been 5 months, and it's already driving me insane. And I've had several very bad fringe cuts that I've done myself. I need to do another one this weekend, so I really need to take the hairdresser's appointment. So I'm afraid I decided that I would have to take advantage of the fact that I work for myself, and I could change my hours if I wanted to. So just so you know, I will be putting it in my newsletters and everything else, but the Thursday of that week it will be a 12 o'clock live, not a 2 o'clock, but every other day that week it'll be 2 o'clock. Okay. Mary says thank you. And you said double oval stamp. Is that just a mistype, Mary, or do you need to know about the stamps that coordinate as well? Jackie says yippee haircut. She's just booked hers for April. She missed her December appointments because she wasn't well. She definitely needs a haircut. Yeah, me too, really badly. I also want all this covered up too. Okay, anything else to say? Today is the very last day to pay for April's card class by post. Bookings close at 5 o'clock today, so if you haven't booked and you would like to, make sure I know, and I can, if you haven't got them already, I can send you out the details of how to pay. But that will be kits for 6 classes posted out to you. You provide your own stamps and ink, but I give you suggestions as to what you can use if you haven't got what I used. There are written instructions, there aren't videos for this class, written instructions, and some photographs. If you know anybody who doesn't use the internet but loves crafting, this is the kind of class that they might really enjoy. And it's my one class where you don't need the internet to do it. So do pass on that information if you know anyone who might enjoy it, or let me have their contact details and I can talk to them about it too. But 5 o'clock today is the cut-off for booking. And other than smiling nicely at you and saying please like and share this live video, I think that's all the announcements I had to make for you today. Oh, Mary says punch. Okay, that's fine, Mary, as long as you got the information you needed. Okay, Deepak is here. Hello, you're very welcome. And Jackie, it's fine, I knew you meant hair. That's no problem. Okay, so all today's crafting is using the beautiful Sand and Sea suite. I absolutely love this. It's the theme of my all-day class tomorrow, and I've still got more projects in my head than I have time for. So I absolutely love it. I love the colours, I love the images. I live close to the sea here. I'm only about half a mile from the sea. I can see the Solent from my front garden, so it's just absolutely lovely. Love the sea, and beaches and sand and warm seas and holidays and all those things. So I really love the Sand and Sea suite. What I've done is I've created some projects just using the Sand and Sea sampler, which is available right now. Several of you I know or have already booked. And you can book for it up until next Friday. I'll show you everything that's in the sampler a little bit later. I'm going to get straight into the crafting now. But you can make all these projects using things that are in the sampler. So I thought that might be a good plan. So I'm going to cover you over, I'm going to turn the camera around so that you can see what I'm doing, and I will be back visually with you in just a minute. Let me just, there we go, I've got a nice yellow post-it as we're talking sea and sand, so bear with me while I turn the camera around. I don't want to give you motion sickness, which is why I move it with you covered over. Okay, so I have all sorts of adjustments to make for this. I have to press several buttons. I have to take it out of the stand to reach the buttons. There we go, that's all the buttons. Then I put it back in the stand. I've got to relocate my microphone. and then get some of the leads out of the way so they're not all dangling across what you can see, and then hopefully I can just have a little last fiddle around and get everything perfect for you. Okay, I'm going to take the post-it off, but I will just have to do a bit more adjustment, so if you are sensitive, don't look until I tell you to, because I don't want to make you feel seasick. Okay, that doesn't actually look too bad. Right, I think I'm going to be happy with that. So you probably by now recognise these. This is the Friends Are Like Seashells stamp set, which is really, really pretty. There's this gorgeous embossing folder which has got the most gorgeous detail on it, and the dies which cut out some of the stamped shapes, and then they also cut out a really large shape which perfectly fits into the embossing folder. And in fact, in the sampler I'm giving you one of these die cut shapes which I am then embossing for you, so that you can use that in your projects. So I'll set those aside. And let's pull out the first card. So these are in no particular order. So this is the die cut that you'll receive. I'm going to have to kind of move it to and fro to really have it high up and show you the detail. But that's really beautiful. So I've die cut the whole thing first, and then I've put it through the embossing folder. And then this is the card that I'm going to make with you now. So what I've done is I've coloured the die cut and then I've chopped it up. So up until now I've always coloured these die cuts using inks, which are lovely, inks and a water painter, and I get a watercolour effect. For this card I went something different, and I've used my Stampin' Blends, which are the alcohol ink markers, and I really love that beautiful smooth colouring. So because it takes quite a while to colour, I have coloured a die cut here just to show you the whole thing completed, and then I can cut that up and show you how I get the different layout of it. But I did think that I would colour one small section just to show you with the Stampin' Blends. So I've got my Seaside Spray Stampin' Blends here. I've got the light and the dark. And I'm going to use the brush end on these. I usually use the bullet point when I'm colouring, but I'm going to colour this big snail shell here, so the brush tip is going to be much better. And I'm not particularly blending colour on these, I'm just using them to colour in. And in fact, I meant to start with the light and I've picked up the dark, but that's okay, we'll just adjust things. And because they're alcohol ink markers, you can kind of scribble the colour on. You don't have to colour completely perfectly. You know, with ordinary water-based felt pens, you kind of colour in lines because you can always see where your lines of colour were, so it looks a bit neater if they're a bit regimented. You don't have to worry about that with this. It does spread the alcohol ink, so when I get to the edge, I colour it first of all just a little bit shy of the edge, and then I go back when I've seen how the ink has spread, and I can always add a little bit more if necessary. So I'm working fairly quickly, but it doesn't have to be really, really fast. Not so fast that you're going to get untidy, but I don't want any of it to dry before I get the area, you know, if I'd coloured here, I want that still wet when I colour the area next to it, because that makes the colour look really smooth. So that's my snail shell. What I was going to do was colour it in light and add the dark flecks, but that's okay because fortunately I've got some other blues. So I'm just going to find, in fact I might even go with a brown. I'm going to reach across and get a brown. There we go. So what is it they say? It's not a mistake, it's a design opportunity. So I've pulled out pulled out my light crumb cake here. So we'll go with a brown contrast on here. And this time round I'll lift this up to show you. I'm just scribbling. I'm not even trying to colour exactly on top of the raised areas done in the embossing on here. So I'm hoping that that focused okay to show you. There's a really long lag today. Yes, I think it did. A really long lag on my iPad. I look at my iPad, but it's, I don't know how long it is, 20 seconds or something today, before I can see what I've just shown, if you see what I mean. There we go. So I'm just really quite scribbly. I'm just going over these raised areas just to add a little bit of interest. Now I could of course colour this in the more conventional way with the blends. I could colour it in the light colour, I could add some shadow with the darker colour, and then I'd come back over it with the light colour just to blend the two together. But this is really quite a subtle brown on top of that blue, and I'm not going to need to do that. There we go. So that is my shell coloured. So it's beautifully even. It's still a little bit damp, that will dry, but I'm going to set that one aside because, as I showed you, I already have one here that I've coloured in, and on this one I used the light Seaside spray and the dark one to pick up the highlights. You can see, this is the dark one here, you can see how it lightens as it dries, because the highlights on this are much lighter than on here. Right, so let's set all that aside and get to my card. So I've got So Saffron for the card base, then I have a layer of Sahara sand, and on top of that I have a layer of this is actually Whisper White. I'm still using up my Whisper White, but if you're ordering it now it will be Basic White, which is the replacement, because our Whisper White paper mill very sadly went out of business due to coronavirus. And then to add on to this, I've got some of the paper from the Sand and Sea pack. That's the back of it, but I'm using this one, which is, it looks just like a beach. You know when there's just that thin film of water on a sandy beach, or even it has washed away and you're left with all these grains of sand? It's just that colour. And this one, which is a beautiful watercolour wash on watercolour paper and then photographed for the to produce the designer series paper, and it just looks very watery to me. So my thinking was this was like looking into a rock pool. So I'm just going to attach these pieces of paper to my base layer. Now I could just put these onto the Sahara sand card without worrying about a white layer underneath, but it just gives a little bit of strength to the paper, means I can pick it up easily because I've got the two pieces attached to something else, and I just find the whole thing easier to work with. So if I'm doing this kind of thing, I almost always attach the paper to a piece of card which remains invisible. So I mean, this doesn't have to be Whisper White, it could be a different colour if you've got a scrap lying around, but it just makes the whole thing easier to handle. And I'm going to butt those two strips right up against each other. I don't know if anybody wants the measurements. If they do, I can tell you that the white layer I've got here is 5 1/4 by 3 1/2. I'm just trimming off the excess. I think I perhaps didn't cut one or other of these very straight because I shouldn't have some excess at the side, but I do. So my base layer that I'm just working on top of is 5 1/4 by 3 1/2. And then my two pieces here, I actually cut them to about 5 1/2 just so that I could get an exact fit and trim off any excess. So they're about 5 1/2 that way, which I've trimmed down to fit my base layer. And the width of them, the sandy one is 1 1/2 and the blue one is 2. Shall I write that down for you? Okay, so sandpaper is 1 1/2 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and then you will trim that. And the water paper is 2 inches by 5 1/2 inches, and the base layer they're on is 3.5 inches by 5.25 inches. There we go. So I'll leave that there for you to copy out should you so wish. I know some people like measurements, other people aren't bothered. The next thing I'm going to do is just layer everything up. So I'll move that aside and layer all these things together. And these layers, I've just gone up 1/4 inch for my Sahara sand layer. So 1/4 inch up from this. So that's 3 3/4 inches by 5.5 inches. And then I have a half sheet of A4 card, which I have folded in the centre. I wanted to do a landscape card, so rather than have a tent fold with the fold at the top, because those tend to kind of go flat if you prop them up, they tend to just go flatter and flatter over time. I've cut it lengthways with the score line there so that it will sit like that, and then it's not going to flop down and go sad. And as always, I'm using the multi-purpose liquid glue because then I can slide this so that my layers are nice and even. There we are. So that's my base for the card, and I'm going to set that aside and bring in my coloured die cut piece. And I've coloured this slightly differently, different shells are different colours to the first one. But if I show you my card, so the first section that I stuck down was this one here. So here I've got this snail shell, I've got 2 kinds of seaweed, and I've got this little scallop shell here. And so on here, that is this section here. So I'm just going to literally snip that out of the die cut. I'll trim it afterwards. It's a bit like, I always think when I'm trimming this up, it's like when I had scraps as a child. Did you ever have those to go in a scrapbook? There was a whole sheet of them. You know, there were all kinds of subjects. I had ones that were birds and dolls in national costume and all kinds of things, and you just snipped the tabs and then you could glue them in. So that's really all I've done on here. But it's a little bit rough around here, so I'm just going to trim around those edges, and here I'm just going to trim this so it looks a little bit neater. Just taper that very slightly, and then it looks a little bit more intentional that it cuts off there. And then I'm just trimming around the end of the shell so I don't have those little sharp pointy bits. Sometimes when I trim these off I find I've got a bit of white card and I can just bring my marker back and colour that. So if I lay this on a piece of white card, hopefully you can see that. So that's my first piece that I'm going to lay on my base. If you have the fine tip glue pen, that will be great for this. I prefer Tombow personally, but lots of people really like the fine tip glue for gluing fancy die cuts. So I'm not trying to cover the whole of the back with glue, but I am trying to get it in all the crucial bits around the edges and on the ends of things. And then let's just stick that down there. So this die cut is on shimmery white paper, which is a card weight, shimmery white card I should say, sorry. There is shimmery white paper in the Sand and Sea suite. I'm getting myself confused, but this is on card. I don't know if the light will pick it up, and it does just have a little bit of a sparkle in it, which is very pretty. So the next section on my completed card that I stuck down is this large shell here, and I left on it the weed at the end. So let me just trim that one out. So the only weed I want on this are those end bits there, so I'm going to trim this off. And you've got the lines on the embossing to follow, so it's very easy to trim these pieces off. So that one goes on next. Okay, and then the last section has got this scallop shell and this weed here, which is here and here. So for this particular card I didn't use this large shell. So again, I'm just going to tidy it up a little bit. You've all gone very quiet. You were watching attentively, or have I disappeared? If I've disappeared, of course, you won't be able to tell me. But hopefully I haven't. Hopefully you're all just concentrating. Is anybody crafting this afternoon? Are you crafting with this suite? Are you doing something else? Sometimes if I'm watching a video like this, I rather go back and watch the video later to do the actual crafting from the video, but I often do something like colouring or cutting out while I'm watching. There we are. So that is that die cut then, cut up, and most of it glued onto the card, but in a completely different configuration. And it's endless the ways you can combine all the different sections of that particular die cut. I'm going to bring in now some of these Opal Rounds. Hi Helen, how lovely to have you here. It feels like forever since I've seen you. And Jane's here. Hi Jane. So these are the Opal Rounds. They're absolutely gorgeous. Trying to find my craft knife just to pick them up with, and I'm just going to add 3 of these just to add a little bit of shine and sparkle. So Sandy's crafting, but she's still colouring. Okay, where should we put that? Tuck it in there. I'm going to use a small one in there, I think, actually. There we go. Hi Jane, lovely to have you. Okay, so there is this card then. Now I've got the insert to do. I am going to use the stamps. They're not included obviously in my sweet sampler unless you would like to add them as an extra, but it is nice to just stamp a little image inside on the insert. And I'm going to use So Saffron ink and stamp this big snail which coordinates with that one. Of course you could add a sentiment if you wanted to. I'm going to leave this one blank because then it'll work for any occasion. I can always stamp a happy birthday or a thank you or even a get well soon on it if I need one of those cards. There we go. So there are those 2 cards. So I hope you like that one. I'm going to move things around a little bit, make some space and do another one. Just cleaning my stamp. I'm sure I sprayed this earlier, but I don't think I can have done because it was very dry. Okay. All right, let's move those. And then I'm going to show you the next card, which is this one. I'm just going to have some of my tea while you have a little look at that. A really dry throat today. Now, even if you don't run to the stamps and the dies and you just want to get the paper, I really think the embossing folder is a great addition, because this is the patterned paper and I've run it through the embossing folder, and you get these beautiful shells with all this colouring just done by the patterned paper. I've covered the envelope flat with some more so you can see it's a really beautiful design. I love these pinks and yellows together. And I have embossed the background on this. I could equally have stamped it or left it plain, but I've used the Seabed embossing folder. That's in the Whale of a Time suite in the annual catalogue, but it obviously works because it's all ocean themed. So for this card I have a Blushing Bride card base, and then I've got a Flirty Flamingo layer and an embossed layer, so I'm adding an extra layer in compared with the card that I just showed you. And then I've got some pieces here I pre-embossed just to save a little bit of time, and I have cut out a couple of shells there we go, but I just thought I would show you that's the paper embossed but without having cut out the shells. So you can see they're really clear on here. It's very easy just to cut out around the outside of the shells, not difficult at all. So with this one, really I've only got to do a little bit of sticking because I've done my cutting. I'm going to first of all put some of this twine round. So this is Blushing Bride twine, so this is going to coordinate with my card base. And this is in a 2-pack with, there's a reel of pink and a reel of white, and it's in the January to June catalogue. It's in with the Snail mail suite, which I haven't got, but I did like the twine. And I'm making a bit of a pig's ear of wrapping this round. You wouldn't think it was difficult, would you? Let's try again. Okay, that's better. That's it. I didn't want it crisscrossing on the front. And then I'm just going to tie that in a bow. Most of it is covered up by the shells, but it's nice to just have a little bit of it peeking out and I can have the bow. There we go. You're still all very quiet. I'm hoping I haven't lost you. Just refreshed my screen to see if I've missed some comments. I haven't seen any since Jane said hi, but it may just be that there aren't any, so I'm not going to worry. According to everything, I haven't lost my internet connection, so hopefully everything is fine. Okay. So that's that piece, and I'm actually going to layer everything up before I add the shells, because that will keep my twine in place and stop it moving as I add things on top. I usually complete this layer before I attach it to my card base, but I'm going to break my own rule today. Hi Lorraine, lovely to have you. It doesn't matter that you're a bit late, that's not a problem. And if you want to hear the beginning, you can always go back and watch that later. Oh, Mary says she's still here, she's engrossed in what I'm doing. Oh, that's fabulous then, Mary. Thank you very much, as long as I haven't lost you all. That was the only thing I was concerned about. Okay, so I've got this beautiful big snail shell. I'm going to pop him on first. And then I'm going to use some dimensionals on the other shells. So I've got this one, which is, it's a bit like a whelk, but slightly more interesting. I'm not sure exactly what kind of shell it is. I'll find my bone folder. There we are. And I'm just going to just curl the edges a little bit so that it sits a little bit more like a 3D shell. Oh, Belinda says she's still definitely here. Thank you, Belinda. Excellent. Alright, let's pop some dimensionals on the back. This is only paper, so it needs quite a bit of support because it will squash it much more easily than cardwood. So I am going to use plenty of dimensionals on here. I always do use plenty of dimensionals. I know you know that by now. They're not expensive, and I think it just is worth it to avoid getting something that gets squashed in the post. Okay, I'm just going to hold the bow out of the way and lay this down across there. And then finally I've got this tiny little scallop shell. Every time you emboss and then cut out these shells, they will be slightly different because they'll hit a slightly different part of the paper. Which is really nice. You'll see when I put my original card next to this, you'll see the variation in colour. Pop that one there. And of course, some of these gorgeous Opal Rounds. I can't get enough of these. So they're in two sizes, so I just pick whatever feels right for where I'm putting them. There we are. And then for the insert, I've got just a strip of the same paper, but I embossed it this time with the Seabed embossing folder. That's the same one I used on the front. So I'm just going to pop that across the bottom of my insert, just to add a little bit of colour inside. Use my grid paper to make sure that strip is straight. There we are. And again, I cut it slightly long so that I could trim it for an exact fit. Because with the best will in the world, there's a tiny variation whenever I cut a piece of card. And sometimes if you cut a strip to the right size for the card, one or other of them is very slightly shorter than the other, and then you have a gap, which I don't like. There we go. So that's another card, and I'll bring back my first one. So one has an extra layer and a different coloured card base, but they're both made with that beautiful Sand and Sea paper, which I've run through the embossing folder and then just cut the shells from. And I'm just going to drink some more tea while you have a chance to have a look at those. Okay, and just put that aside, and I'm just going to cover my envelope flap, which I do such a lot. My friend and team member Rosie got me onto this. She does this on pretty much all her cards, and I've been lucky enough to receive quite a lot of her beautiful cards. And it's so pretty to have an envelope with the flap decorated, and it often is an offcut of paper that I can use for that. So I just put glue on the envelope flap, and then from the wrong side just trim off the excess. So it's super easy, you don't need to die cut anything to shape. Just come round with my scissors and trim it. There we are. Okay, so that's that one. I'm already creating chaos around me, and I'm trying to keep things tidy so that when it gets to the end I can find everything I've made to show you all together. And if I'm not careful, I just end up with piles of stuff and I can't find anything. Okay, that's a bit better. All right, and then this is my final card to show you today. This one I have stamped some words on. I've made it a thank you card because I always need thank you cards. I send loads of thank you cards with classes and for orders and all sorts of other things, as well as personal thank yous. So my thank you is from the Peaceful Moments stamp set. Honestly, if you don't have this, you really need it. It's got a sentiment for all those important occasions. One's for the front, one's for the inside. Most of them are very plain and to the point, although there are a few slightly more flowery ones for those occasions when that's what you want. The font is beautiful. In fact, it's a combination of a sort of a handwritten one and then a more block capital. It's really lovely. I don't very often say you need to buy things, but you really do need this. I don't know what I will do if they retire it. I use it every time practically I start crafting. Okay, so I'm just going to mount up that thank you, and I'm going to ink it up and just check it on my grid paper to make sure I've got it on there straight. So I'll line up my block with the grid paper and stamp it. Yeah, I need it on there completely straight, so that's good. Alright, so for this particular card, all the shells on here are snipped from the patterned paper. And the paper has got shells on it in all colours, so there's lots of blues and pinks and different pinks actually, and yellows and browns. Shells in all different sizes. And I have cut out the shells because you know how to do cutting out. There we go. So I've cut out a whole selection of shells. I have got one here I can cut if I need one more. I wonder if I will. Just looking at the number I used in the other card, probably will. Alright, snip this one out. Belinda says that's another vote from her for Peaceful Moments. She's got it on her desk right now. Yeah, it is such a good set. The scale of the sentiment stamps is just perfect. You know, if ever I don't know which set I need to stamp some words, that's the one I always reach for. So as always, cutting out, I'm moving the paper, I'm not moving my scissors to and fro like that, or around. I'm only opening and closing the blades, and I'm using my left hand to hold the paper. I'm right-handed. So I use my left hand just to wiggle the paper and allow me to cut out. And I leave just the tiniest margin around the outer edge of that image. So the image has got a very definite edge to it, and then I leave a tiny little a border all round, and that will account for any wobbles in my cutting. If I'm trying to cut on the line and I wobble and miscut, it's really going to notice. But if I wobble and my border isn't absolutely perfect, that notices much less, because your eye goes to the line of the image rather than the border. So let's put those out of the way. So on here I've also got some of the braided linen trim, which I really love. It comes like this on a roll. It's very narrow. When I use it, I like to actually fray it out quite a bit and also stretch it. It frays and stretches really easily. And then I usually pull it so the weave is much looser. It does spring back a little bit. But it looks a bit more like fishing net, or I don't know, something like that, something that you might find washed up on the beach when you've kind of distressed it a little bit like this. So that's how I like to use it. But used like this, it's a very neat and tidy trim for all sorts of other things. It's a good one to use on plainer or men's projects, but also because it's a natural colour and a natural fibre, it's really nice if you use it with leaves or flowers or trees, things like that. So for all those projects, I just think this is an absolute winner. Linen thread used to be my favourite for that, but I think this one has overtaken linen thread even. This is the braided linen trim. There we are. So that's prepared those pieces. I'll set those aside as well, and then I'm just going to bring in all my layers. So my card base is Seaside Spray, and I have a Sahara Sand layer, and this time I'm going to put my shells on white rather than on Sahara Sand, just for a slightly different look. And I'm going to stamp my words first, and then I can locate everything else in an arrangement that looks right with those words. So I've got soft suede ink here, so I wanted to go one shade darker than Sahara Sand for the brown, and I'm going to put that about here. There we are. And then I'll be curving everything else around here. So first of all, I'm going to lay down my trim, which I want to go kind of down and around the corner and then along. And I could have used just one piece, but I find it's a little bit more manageable to keep in place if it's two pieces. And I'm going to use mini glue dots to stick it down. So I'll press my linen trim on there and then lift it off, and the glue dot comes off on the trim, and that's much easier than trying to pick up a glue dot and stick it onto something that's a little bit springy like the trim is. Okay, so I've just put those along the trim at intervals. I'm going to stretch that trim a little bit, there we are, so that it completely covers the glue dot. Okay. And I don't want this to be completely straight. It can have a bit of a bend in it. Something like that. And the same with the other piece. And fold over that glue dot that's sticking out a little bit because I didn't get it in quite the right place. There we are. Now I may end up trimming off some of these ends, but I'll leave them in place for the moment. And then what I normally do when I'm arranging something like this is I play around with the pieces until I'm happy with them, and then I take a photograph of them on my phone, and then it's easy for me to reproduce the arrangement, because then I can move them off and then just look at my phone and I can see which piece went where, I can see which colours went where. I'm not going to do that now. Tuck that one down there, I think, perhaps. But I will put those on my working surface approximately where they go in about the right order, like that. There we are. So I'm going to put this big shell on first, and I'm going to glue this flat, but some of the others I will put on dimensionals again, just to give it a little bit more interest. Okay, I quite like some of those loose ends showing, so I don't want to completely cover them up. I'm going to put this other large shell on, and then I can work the others around them. Okay, and then these I will pop most of them up on dimensionals, so I'm just going to curve the edges very slightly with my bone folder. So it's just like you would curl ribbon. I'm just laying the paper on the edge of the bone folder, putting my thumb on there and pulling the paper out whilst applying a little bit of pressure with my thumb. So if you've ever curled ribbon to go on a parcel, it's exactly the same motion. Okay, dimensionals. Have I got any left on here? I've got one left on that sheet. Fortunately, I have more. There we are. So now it's just a case of adding these. It really doesn't matter how you put them on. It can be quite haphazard or very planned. I usually try to have at least one more shell cut out than I think I'm going to need. It's often useful to have an extra one just as a little infill. Okay, so I'm going to trim off some of these ends because I think they are going to be a little bit untidy, but I'm going to trap the rest of them underneath my blue shell. There we go. And if a little one peeks out, I shall be quite happy for it to do that, but they're not too messy. Dimensional backings, they get everywhere, don't they? Was it last week we had to talk about where dimensional backings end up? There were all sorts of places. There we are. So that is all my cutouts. Oh no, look at that one. I haven't stuck that one down. I obviously laid it in place and not stuck it. Dimensionals, there we are. So now that's all my shells. and it's nice to have them overlapping and looking a little bit like they've tumbled higgledy-piggledy, I think. So now it's just a case of layering up, and then I shall add some more of those gorgeous opal rounds just for a little bit of shine. Just going to get rid of all these little bits here. And I have an insert. I'm just going to stamp an image on the inside. Oops, I'm going to use that same snail shell I used before. This time I'll use Seaside Spray ink. And then my card is done. There we are. So, variations on a theme. Just going to finish my tea. I'm sure it's cold by now. Alright, so I'll pull all the cards back to show you in just a minute, but I thought I would just bring in the sweet sampler, the Sand and Sea Sweet sampler. So if you love these but you don't want to have to buy whole packs of everything, that's really the whole point of this. So let me show you what you get. So you get a quarter of a pack of the patterned paper. So all the designs I've been using today and more. So I'll run through them to show you. So this one has got dots on one side and then a blue waves sort of pattern on the other. Sea urchins, and then this is the water which I used on the first card. Then we've got little yellow starfish, and this is another beautiful watercolour. Actually, I'm going to turn this sideways, you'll see more of it then. Then we have sand dollars on one side, and that's the one that I embossed the shells onto. This one, which is the one that I've just cut those little shells from, and the sand texture. And then all kinds of shells, starfish, sand dollars in pink and white, and then another really beautiful watercolour wash on there. So you get 6 pieces of patterned paper. They're all different and they measure 6 inches by 12 inches. So that works out as a quarter of a pack of the patterned paper. There is also a quarter of a pack of the shimmer paper. Now hopefully the light will pick up the shimmer on this. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a heavyweight paper. The piece you get is 6 by 12. You can die cut it, you can emboss it, you can use it as layers, all kinds of accents. You can stamp on it, although you will need to either heat set it or leave it to dry overnight because the surface isn't porous, so you've just got to wait for the ink to air dry, but you can certainly stamp on it. It's really beautiful. So you get those papers. You'll also get a good selection of card in the colours in the papers. So there's Flirty Flamingo, a sheet of that, a sheet of Melon Mambo, beautiful bright pink, a sheet of Sahara Sand, a sheet of So Saffron, a sheet of Blushing Bride, a sheet of Seaside Spray, and 2 sheets of standard weight Whisper White. So all of those sheets of card are A4, so you can use them for card bases and layers and inserts and more. You'll get 5 each of the different stickers. So there is a sticker pack, so you have a trying to think how many there are in the pack. I can't remember. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, a fifth of a pack you have of the stickers. These are on pearlized paper again, so they have a real shimmer to them. So there's the blue ones, little pink shells, the blue shells, and the yellow starfish. You have a fifth of a pack of these beautiful opal rounds. You've got some of the large and some of the small ones there. There's 25 there in all, I think. 5, 10, 15, 20, yeah, 25 opal rounds. And one of these pieces which I die cut and emboss for you in shimmery white card. So that is your Sand and Sea Sweet Sampler. If you collect it from me, click and collect, it's £10, and it's basically its catalogue price. I've rounded it up to allow a little bit for the packaging and my time cutting, but it's basically the catalogue price. If you need it posting to you, I will post it out to you ordinary second class post, and that will cost £12. You can obviously order more than one pack if you want more than one. And if you want to add on anything, of course you can. You can add that beautiful embossing folder, or maybe the braided linen trim, the stamps and die bundle, which coordinates so nicely. So you can add on anything at all that you like. If they need to be posted to you, there will be an extra postage charge for those, because they will obviously be heavier and bulkier. But the kit, as I've just shown you, the sampler, is £10 collected or £12 posted to you second class. If you'd like more information about that, then let me know and I can send it out to you. Essentially, I just need to know that you want one and you need to pay me. It's not complicated. But the closing date for ordering it is a week today, next Friday. So I hope that I've inspired you that actually this is a really beautiful sampler. Let me bring back the cards I've made this afternoon to show you. I'll spread them out in a moment, just once I can see how much of everything you can see on your screen. Hopefully you can see them all. Yeah, I think you can. There we are. So that is today's little projects. I've loved making these. I'm going to enjoy sending them out to people, and I know I'll be making more with this suite. I really do love it. I'm going to move the camera back up to me so I can just say a final goodbye to you and tell you about next week. So I'm going to cover you over, readjust the microphone, take off those buttons so that by the time I see you again I don't look like I am upside down or back to front, because that doesn't do me any favours at all. Okay, nearly there. Okay, how's that? Oh, a little bit on the wobble, I think. Hopefully that's better. I can't see yet on my iPad, but I'm hoping that will be all right. Mary, you are very welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I will definitely see you tomorrow at that class, which will be great. Very excited. Next week, I will be here at 2 o'clock next Friday. Next Friday, I've got my Simply Citrus kit, which is exactly as I received it. I haven't opened it, I haven't looked at it, I haven't done anything. So I'm going to unbox that and show you what's inside and then make some other projects. So I'm looking forward to that. And the week after that is Good Friday, the 2nd of April. I will not be here on Good Friday. I ummed and ahed about whether to do a live because I do really love doing them. But I decided it was going to be family time. So, so I won't be here on the 2nd on Good Friday. And I'll remind you about that next week. But that's just to give you a bit of a heads up now. So people are saying goodbye and thank you, and thank you. I'm glad you liked the cards. For those of you I'm going to see tomorrow, I will aim to be here at 10 o'clock sharp. I hope I won't be late, and I'll see you tomorrow. The rest of you, I'll see you next week. Jackie and Ruth, I will send you the information for the butterfly class. Jackie, don't forget to let me have your email address, send it via Messenger, and that will be great, and I will get that and send that information out to you. And anybody else who would like any information on what I've been talking about, let me know either in the comments, because I do go through those at the end of the session, or you can email me. It's handmade at home, that's all one word, handmade at home @hotmail.co.uk. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will look forward to seeing you at 2 o'clock next Friday. Have a great weekend. Bye bye.